Hey folks, this is Chad Perkins for Red Giant, here to talk about PluralEeyes and using PluralEeyes in conjunction with Sony Vegas. Now the point of PluralEeyes is to take footage from your video source with kind of lower quality audio and to take externally recorded audio from an external audio recorder, this is called dual system audio, and sync them together automatically. Now in this tutorial we're going to be using multiple cameras recorded at the same time, often called a multicam setup, and then we're going to sync all those cameras to a high quality audio source. But you can also just sync one camera to an audio source or multiple cameras to each other. Now this is a great example here. I recently shot an interview with the actress Eva Jane for some filmmaking training that I'm creating, and I used a bunch of different cameras, and I didn't really slate, and I was just a one-man band. I had to light everything myself and do all the audio and the interview myself, so I didn't really do all that good housekeeping stuff you usually do when you film. And so I have a bunch of footage here, so I just dumped it in my project here in Vegas. I have footage from a Canon 7D, I have footage from a GoPro, and then I have high-quality audio from a Zoom H4n recorder. Now, in addition to all that stuff, on the GoPro card, there was a bunch of other clips that weren't from this interview that just happened to be other stuff that I had shot that got imported as well. I don't want to take the time to do all this all by myself. I want something to do this for me, and that somebody is PluralEeyes, thankfully. So here's how to do this. I can go to the Tools menu in Vegas, go to Extensions, and choose PluralEeyes 4. That will open up PluralEeyes 4 for me. There's a better way that I prefer though. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Options menu, and I'm going to choose Customize Toolbar, and I'm going to scroll over here to the available toolbar buttons, and we'll just go down this list, and what do you know, there's PluralEeyes 4, click Add to add that to my current toolbar buttons, click Close, and what do you know, little convenient PluralEeyes 4 button right here. So now all I have to do is just click this button. Now here's what happens. PluralEeyes is automatically launched for me. And also all of my media from my project in the same order and everything is taken and imported into PluralEeyes. Then PluralEeyes is ready to synchronize and the synchronize button is active. That's all you have to do. Now again, this order of my clips is the same order that we had in Vegas, but when I brought those in, I didn't bother to arrange those or order them in the correct order or anything. And PluralEeyes is going to go ahead and do that for me. So I'm going to go ahead and click the synchronize button, and these clips just start getting arranged and put in the right order. And boom, folks, there you have it. All those clips put in the right order. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on one of these GoPro clips over here. I'm going to click this media button, which is going to open up the player down here. And I can scroll through these, you know, just to make sure that they're synced. Now I'm looking right now at Camera One's video, but I'm also looking at Camera One's audio. I don't want Camera One's audio. I want to look at what's going on with the audio recorder. So I'm going to click the drop down here on the right-hand side. I'm going to change this to audio recorder. So that way, and that gives us a little reminder here, audio is different from the video playing. So we can see the video from one source and listen to the master audio. Let's look what that looks like. I only practiced B because I thought A was like a... Perfect. Now let's go over here a little bit later, and we have this shot with the GoPro.
I think it can be learned.
And then we could cut or look at what's going on at that same spot with the 7D. You can act, and it totally works. Now I mentioned that I have GoPro footage here, Canon 7D, DSLR footage, but the amount of file types that PluralEeyes works with is insane. There's so many different file types. And, you know, in addition to all those file types, another great benefit here is that the syncing is really automatic. There used to be a bunch of settings and options that you'd have to kind of wrestle with a little bit. And in PluralEeyes 4, they've taken all that out. It's all super intelligent, happening in the background for you. So if it needs to add another layer of intelligence to sync your clips, then it'll do that for you. You don't have to manually set that. I really love how clean and simple the new interface is as well. So I have this, you know, sample waveform here, but sometimes I might want to see that a little bit bigger. Now, in most programs that deal with audio, when you increase the volume, the waveform increases in size, and that's what you want. That's what basically that size of the waveform is indicative of the volume. But in this case, I don't really want it to be louder. I don't want to change the volume here in PluralEeyes. I just want to see it better. So you have this plus minus icon, and you can actually increase the size of the waveform so you can tell if it's syncing or not. You can tell that they're kind of lined up here. And we can shrink that or grow that. And this doesn't have any bearing on the volume whatsoever. By the way, you could also use the keyboard shortcuts, the bracket keys next to the letter P on your keyboard. So the right bracket increases the size and the left bracket lowers the size of that waveform, which is really handy. You also have these volume meters here. I mean, you could turn off these sources if you want to. You can increase the volume of these sources, but as it says here, volume adjustments are not exported. They're just for you to test in PluralEeyes and to check the sync, but that's it. It's not exported. It's not fiddling with your media at all. And I could also use the plus and minus keys on my keyboard to zoom in, or the minus key to zoom out. Or if I'm zoomed in really closely or I want to see all of my timeline at once, I could use the backslash key. That's the slash above the enter return key. And that's kind of like a zoom extents. It shows me all of my clips at once. Now, everything's synced. My cameras are great. This is ready to edit. It's ready to go back into Vegas. So all I have to do to get my synced clips back into Vegas is to click this export timeline button. And that's it. And as it says here, it saves a project imported from Vegas Pro and exits the application. So when we're done, it's so tidy, it like cleans up after itself. So when we get back into Vegas, PluralEeyes will close itself and take our synchronized clip to the timeline. And there's a little note here, unsynchronized clips, that's these clips in red. The red means it failed to sync, which is great. This is like, you know, family vacation video that ended up on my GoPro as well. I don't want that part of my timeline. So unsynchronized clips, thankfully, will be moved to the end of the timeline. So I'll click export. And here we have our clips all synced up, and the garbage ones that I don't want are here at the tail end where they can be deleted the most conveniently. Or I guess they don't have to be deleted. That might be a little harsh. I could just move them. In this case, I'd want to delete them, but you might want to move them or rearrange them or whatever. But putting them at the tail end of your timeline is much more convenient. So now I have all these synced clips, and now I could go to town in Vegas editing them as my heart desires. Now, if I were to bring in other clips, more media, I can drag it to my project here, resync using the PluralEeyes button here, and do the same thing. It doesn't mess with these synced files at all. Let's look at one other example. Now, sometimes when you have longer clips like this, these are about 15 minutes long or so, they can tend to drift into and out of sync over time. Now, this is usually because of little differences in the devices used to record the audio. But what do you do if you're trying to sync this manually and you get these sync issues over time? I mean, you're stuck. But watch this. When I just do a regular old sync in PluralEeyes, click the synchronize button, I don't have to do anything. It automatically detects sync drift and applies drift correction for me. Now, just to show you how tricky of a problem this is, I'm going to click here to remove drift correction. And now this is just a regular old sync. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on each clip and press on the right bracket key so I get a bigger waveform. Again, this just doesn't change the volume, but allows me to see that waveform more clearly so I can compare these two tracks. Now, if I zoom into the center of these tracks, these waveforms appear to line up. I mean, the sync is fine. Who needs drift correction, right? Even if I click on the left side of the track here, the bottom little line, and expand these tracks so I get a bigger waveform to make it easier to compare these two tracks, they still look totally aligned. But when I use the backslash key to zoom all the way out so we can see everything, and I go to the beginning of these clips and then zoom back in, we can see that things aren't quite lined up right. And I could tell by turning back on drift correction, now they work, now they're synced up. Turn it off, and now they're not. Now look at this peak over here. That's really obvious how far off they are. I mean, they're quite a bit out of sync. But I put on drift correction, they line up perfectly. Off, on, off, on. PluralEeyes is looking through all of your footage, making sure that your entire clip is synced all the way through the clip. Now, it's also worth noting that PluralEeyes is the only software on the planet that can detect and correct this issue. So that's it, folks. That's all there is to syncing video and audio, even tons of it. I mean, again, this is a lot of footage. This clip here, this audio clip is an hour long. This is tons of media, tons of stuff to go through. There are gaps in these clips, and we're zoomed out kind of far, so you can't really tell, but there's a lot of gaps in this media because of that, DSLR 12-minute limit things. So there's gaps in these clips, and PluralEyes discovered them and still synced everything just fine. Now, if you'd like it to dig a little deeper, be sure to check out redgiant.com/tutorials to see more PluralEyes tutorials for other host apps and also other workflows and tips and tricks and stuff like that. On behalf of Red Giant, I am Chad Perkins. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.